Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you as ever from the Messy Time Studios, broadcasting from the beautiful beaches of the last free state in America, Florida. It is the 24th of July, 2025, and I am joined once again in the studios by Karen Hunt Mezek, who has a tremendous amount of experience and story to tell. Karen, thank you so much for taking the time again. How are you?
I'm as good as I can be over here in New York, but yeah, it's always good to be with you. We're always fighting that battle together on Substack, so
Oh,
we always see each other's
yes.
writings, and yeah, so it's great to be with you.
Well, it's good. So today I want to dive in. Here's what was on my mind. New York, my hometown, multi generations. We had to leave because they're so awful. But I thought that New York had kind of plumbed the depths when they went and hired Warren Wilhelm Jr., who later called himself Bill De Blasio. I don't know why commies changed their name to run for office in America. Um, and then they had 8 years of this idiot, which is kind of insane. But only 11% of voters bothered to vote. But I really thought they'd hit bottom. Now we've got Zohran Mamdani, a Shia 12er who refuses to sign a basic annual New York State legislature condemnation and remembrance of the Holocaust, who has said publicly he wants to tax white people more, who has said he wants to put in place a law that forbids New Yorkers from donating to an Israeli cause, meaning quite literally,
Yes.
he wants to, if Mrs. Stein on 85th Street, who's 78 years old, writes a $25 check to Hadassah for hospital supplies in Tel Aviv, he wants the right to put her in prison. And as of right now, it looks like he's going to become the fucking mayor of New York City. And so far as I can tell, apparently Americans have decided to commit suicide and cave into Islamist terror. You're sorry. I'll edit it
But I
later.
know what you I know what you were saying.
I was
I know what
ranting
you were
about Zohran and his evil Islamist terror support, who wants to tax white people and kill Jews.
right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not from New York. I'm from the other side of the country, which is just as bad, Los Angeles. But I am here in New York right at the moment, and it's pretty incredible, you know. And as you say, what's really it's the apathy of the people, so many people, because they have so many other things on their minds. Or I think, you know, we really don't talk very much about the connection with AI and how distracting all of that is to people now, distracting them from the actual issues. I get really frustrated because uh, people think that if they spend an hour looking at 100 different short little sound bites, they found out some information, right?
Right.
Rather than diving a little, like if you spent 15 minutes just reading something that was a little more in depth on an issue, you would understand things better. But people think, you know, they've got this crazy idea now that that is a waste of time. So people really don't understand the issues. That's a big problem, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that what's incredible is that uh, this type of narrative has been so pushed, but you know we think it's happened suddenly, but it hasn't happened suddenly.
Oh no.
It's been going on since the 1960s. Young people love Mamdani. You know, everybody that's, you know, every academic, every person that's been to a top university in the United States. Well, not
Not
everyone, but
everyone.
not everyone, yes, but
Those of us
many
who
of
paid
them.
attention know that he is evil incarnate. I just have to interrupt very
Exactly.
quickly. He's awful in so many ways, but he's like Obama. Like the Democrat playbook now is take an unknown with no history you can look at. He's never had a job, this twit. He worked for
Right.
mommy for
Yeah.
3 years. Zohran. Uh, uh,
I mean, but look, if they can accept Al-Jawlani, who is an ISIS terrorist,
yes.
and the president of the United States can go and shake his hand and say he's a great guy. Why? Because he put on a suit and trimmed his beard.
Right.
You know, Mamdani, you know, as the same with Obama. It's, you know, he has that image that people love. You know, oh, it's something new. It's like a new cereal on the shelf at the market. You know, there. That's what I'm saying. There is no depth anymore to anything. where people actually think on a logical, deeper level. And it is all emotionalism. It's all emotionalism. Yeah, he's evil. I mean, the fact that people, he's a 12er is Islam,
Yeah,
Muslim, the same as the regime of Iran.
yeah. Who support
So,
him?
and even if he puts on the cloak of communism, you know, people need to understand, and me having actually lived in a Muslim country for 3 years, you know that beneath that surface of whatever cloak they decide to wear in public, that is the agenda. That is what they, the ultimate goal or the ultimate prize is the caliphate. I mean, how fantastic to get the what's considered the financial center of the world. And
Crazy.
then we've got also London, remember,
Yep.
these
London
two
has already fallen.
centers.
It's already a caliphate. New
Exactly.
York is
So
on the way.
that's what we're looking at. I'm actually hopefully going to London at the end of August. I lived there in the 80s. I lived between London and Yugoslavia. I know communism very well for 7 years.
Yeah.
I know communism and I know Islam very well from, that terrible thing, from personal experience. I have been there, like
Yep.
Dave Smith says, oh, why do you have to go there? I'm one of those horrible people who obviously
I
don't know what
refuse to even
I'm talking
say that
about.
loser's name. I don't know why he's gotten any attention. He is, a C- student who became a comedian but isn't funny. I've got no idea why anyone listens to this idiot. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about him because it just
Yeah,
gives him
I'm
more
not going to
fame.
talk about him, and nobody should ever,
He's
ever
an
have
idiot. And
lower themselves to debate him.
then why
Right.
bother, right? The phenomenon of the self-hating Jew is nothing new. From Josephus in the Roman Empire to Spinoza to Noam Chomsky to Bernie Sanders hugging
Yes,
Mahmoud Khalil. Bernie Sanders, that evil fuck, he declined to meet with American hostages released from Hamas captivity. He declined to meet with the hostages, not Bibi Netanyahu, not the generals of the IDF. No, people who were taken hostage. Bernie Sanders, and I don't care that he's a Jew. I mean, that's just stupid on top of stupid. He's an American senator who declined to meet with Americans who'd been held hostage by a terrorist organization, and here he is hugging this terrorist fangirl. What has gone wrong with the American liberals? Really, if JFK woke up today and you said this is a Democrat, he's like, no, that's a communist. I fought them in World War II. What are you talking about? I can't even remain calm on this topic. It's so insane.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, there's so many problems with it, but people don't go into the depths of it. I wrote a piece about it. For example, well, for example, he goes out into the street, so cool. He goes out into the street to the halal, the food carts, for
Yep.
example. This is just an example. I just passed a few of those the other day in my walk through the city, and so I was thinking about this. And he does these videos, the poor people who are selling this halal food, they have to pay such high prices. We need to, get this out, free them from the constraints that are put upon them. Well, there's reasons why there are those constraints. They have to certain certifications.
Yeah, health and safety checks. You're a food vendor.
There's
Yeah,
all kinds of reasons
of course.
why. Practical, valid reasons why that food is more expensive. But then again, does he go over to the kosher food people and say the same thing, which their food is, 20 to 50% times higher because of the exact same issues? So the fact, he appeals to people on this emotional level, but people do not look at it, in a rational, perspective where he's just, what he's saying is essentially meaningless. It's just an emotional way to make people think that, oh, he's so great. He's out there on the street connecting with people. Of course, he was up against Cuomo,
Yeah.
So, he got pretty lucky with that. That's for sure. But,
Well, in terms of the tactics, you're right. But like, Milton Friedman's great line years ago about healthcare in America was, and he was prescient. He was right about this. If you think healthcare is expensive now, just wait till it's free, right?
Oh yeah,
And so Zohran, who's never had a job,
exactly,
is going to set up and run free grocery stores.
Yeah,
The arrogance, what drives me
that's
crazy, what I
arrogance.
try to
Yeah,
get younger people to listen to, the arrogance to think with no experience you're going to what, reinvent supply chains and talk to vendors. Like, how is this magically going to happen, you commie flake? Like, how are you, first off, where in New York are you going to pay? So the taxpayer is going to pay rent, and then people who aren't incentivized to control costs, which is why groceries can be as cheap as they are at all, right? We're not going to change city regulations because they're going to leave that in place. Just the hubris and the stupidity.
It also takes away the competitive spirit of people. Again,
Right.
when I was a kid, my family traveled the world because my father was quite a renowned Christian author. Yep. So totally 100% supportive of Israel. That's how I was raised. One of those Christians. Okay. Right. But which there are fewer and fewer of now, by the way, because we are being attacked as well. But anyway, so when I was like 18 years old, and this is in the 1970s, that's how old I am, folks. We were traveling through the Soviet Union. You had to get a special, it was not easy. This is how crazy my parents were. Fantastic parents. Gave me the most incredible life.
Well, crazy in this instance.
In a good sense. Right. Did things that nobody else would do.
Right.
So you had to get a special permit to get in there. Just the red tape, for example, to get into the Soviet Union. You had to buy all of your petrol ahead of time so that you could only go on certain routes. And when we were in there, so we went, for example, we were so excited in Moscow to go to GUM. This is the biggest, most fantastic department store. We go in there, nothing in the stores,
nothing on the shelves,
nothing. Yep. And then you have these, people standing behind the counter like this, and they could care less. Right. They could care less about anything because there's no incentive to do anything. There's no incentive to long lines just to buy cucumbers on the street. It has never ever worked. It has never worked. But somehow, they think that they're going to do this. And we talked to young people at that time. And my mom kept a journal while we were there, and they would say, "We love America. We would love to come to America." At the same time, in the United States, of course, young people were protesting for good reason against the Vietnam War. But that's when communism was, rearing its ugly head as something that we should all, embrace. So the irony of seeing the reality of what communism is, or socialism, or whatever you want to call it, and then they could not, they could not grasp that young people in America did not understand how horrible at that time that communism was.
So basically, your experience in the Soviet Union in the 70s, it's funny because I was just in Hungary and Prague and speaking with a lot of people who had lived through the communist era and now in a different era. And I think the one thing that occurred to me as I was speaking with a lot of folks there, and part of what I think messaging for rational free market actors has to be to counter the left's onslaught of commie propaganda since the 1960s in universities and high schools, is to acknowledge that for some people it sounds pretty good. Like, there were a couple of folks who said, look, the old joke of the Soviet Union was they pretend to pay us and we pretend to work, right? If you're guaranteed a job by the state, you have no incentive to do anything. But it's also true that for a lot of people in America and elsewhere, and this is really literally, it's not a criticism. They like a plain, boring life. Give me a job to do that pays me enough to cover my bills, buy my beer, and let me watch football every weekend. That's fine for them. And they don't like the idea of the stress that I might lose my job, that I might be unemployed. So I try to always remember that. I'm saying, but in a robust, healthy economy, you're not going to lose your job. If you do your job well and just show up and push the broom as you're told to, you're not going to get fired because we need you to do it, right? If you're an
Mhm.
incompetent idiot, get stoned on the job, yeah, you're going to get fired, right? But for what the left has done, and you said it right about the '60s. Bill Ayers, by chance, the students of Democratic Society and Weather Underground, had Bill been a middle class or working class kid, he'd still be in jail today for terrorism.
Right.
But his daddy was a rich insurance executive in Chicago, politically connected, and even then he couldn't get him off. And Bill and Dorn, his wife, went on the run, right? But he happened to have gone to high school with a good friend of mine who knew him
Oh,
well. They
wow.
grew up together. Yeah, and so my friend relates to me that after that trial, the last conversation he ever had with Bill was Bill said, "The communists in America have modeled ourselves on the Society of Jesus in the Catholic Church. And the Jesuits said, if you want to change society, you change the next generation, you go into education." So the
Mm.
communists in this country deliberately went into education,
Yes.
combined with you could dodge the draft if daddy paid for college, right? You could stay out of the draft if you went to college. And the war went on for 10 years. So you went to college. Daddy got you out of the draft. What do you mean the war's still going on? I graduated. Oh, Christ. Now he did a master's degree. Then it's still going on. Oh, my God. And they went into PhD programs. So you got a bunch of whatever you think about the rightness or wrongness of Vietnam. In a societal sense, those men were cowards who did not do what men are supposed to do.
Right.
Whether you go to war or not, they dodged their male responsibilities and therefore never became adults. And they're all commie
That's a
whiny
good
losers.
argument. Yeah, that's a good argument. And
There
I
you are.
think that, yeah, and what happened to the veterans who came back was unconscionable. The way that they were
Unconscionable.
treated, it was just absolutely horrific. But, people always think also, yeah, it's going to be, it's going to sort of, a good thing about socialism or communism is that, it's going to even things out. As you say, people can just go along happily and have their job. And they think that somehow it's going to get rid of the billionaires. No, I'm sorry. No,
Right.
this happens everywhere. There's the oligarchs. Hello. There are the
Yeah.
oligarchs, right? And when I was married to a Slovene, living between London and communist Yugoslavia in the 80s. Okay. He was a pop star. He's a big star over there. So I had really interesting access. I've had a crazy life. So I had
Yep.
a lot of access to very, very interesting, part of society basically there. And my brother-in-law, Vinko, was the founder of Elan Skis. Okay. So Elan's, it's a big company. So a really, really interesting guy, spoke English very well. He was actually old enough to be my father. He was much older than me, but he told me these great stories because he went to the Soviet Union, to Moscow all the time, and he said, he said it's like there's this whole other world behind a funny little door. You go, you stay in a big hotel, they come and pick you up in a big chauffeur driven car, and you go to this place, and the door opens, and every possible thing that you could imagine that's a delicacy
Right.
or that,
All there.
it's
Some
all there,
people
but
at the top.
exactly, just for those very few. Now, we are in danger of that happening here with our incredible, with the billionaire class that we're creating, which is kind of, we're in danger of losing our middle class now, So that is a danger, but we don't want to then, go over to something that's even worse. We need to find some balance. But what's happening with all of this is that, the further left, the more radical the left gets, the more radical the right feels like it needs to get as well. That's the danger that's happening now. So that's why you've got this rise of the far right that's going on, and it pushes people. I give the analogy of like prison, because I used to work. I started a creative writing program for incarcerated youth in Los Angeles, and you go into prison, you might not be a Nazi white supremacist, but if you're white, you have no choice but to go over
Better
on
be
that
right
side.
now.
Yeah, you're going to be
Yep.
right now, right? And so that's kind of, the danger of what we're seeing that's happening. And anybody, as we know now, who stands up against all of this is getting more and more demonized, essentially. So that's basically what's going on, I think. And yeah, we need to really fight for some moderation, because it's just getting so crazy.
Well, I have to say, especially with regards to Mamdani, right? I saw the absurdity of him winning the primary, but again, Trump
Hmm.
was an ass, and
Yeah.
the other people competing, okay, so that was a weird twist of fate that he did that, right? Um, but what terrifies me, truly terrifies me, is I know the Republican Party leadership in various states. In New York, I know them well, old friends of
Yeah.
mine. And so I called and I said, well, this will be a slam dunk. You put someone up reasonable and we're going to have a Republican mayor. And they're like, no, he's going to win. I'm like, what do you
Are
mean he's
you
going to
serious?
win? He's a Jew hating commie lunatic. How is he going to win? Just literally spend all the money going to get the 88% of New Yorkers who don't vote. Go to them and say, this is who this asshole is. This is what he wants to do. Here's $1 for cab fare. Go fucking vote on voting day. And they've already given up. They've already given up. And I was like, how is this possible? You can elect a 33-year-old Jew-hating, pretend commie Islamist terrorist as mayor of New York, and you've just given up. How is that possible? It really makes me despair. In a way that I had, until we've always, because of recent events, we've flirted with it. We have the right to live in Europe. We have the right to live in Israel. And we've been talking about it, especially since October 7th. But like when he told me that 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago, that the Republicans in New York have already accepted that this lunatic will be mayor, I was like, I got to move to Israel. This is
Yeah.
insane. This how is this possible? You can just roll over and let this Shia 12er terrorist become the fucking mayor of New York? And you just
Yeah.
accepted
It's
it?
time to,
And there
it's
are people,
time
there
for,
are
yeah.
Jews from Mamdani in the streets with signs? Wow, it's like cows for abattoirs. It's like gays for Hamas. They've lost their minds.
Truly. I think
Sorry, I can't remain calm.
I don't get it. I don't get it. A good friend of mine, in the 1970s, he was from Iran, and he was going to school at Purdue University. And when the whole thing happened with the Ayatollah there, and the hostage situation there, all the young people, intellectuals from Iran who were studying at Purdue, they were all totally behind the Ayatollah. They were just like 100%. They thought, oh, this is great. And the Ayatollah used them for his
Oh yeah.
purposes. And my friend, he was like
Yep.
the only one who saw through all of that, basically, and refused to go along with it. But he said every single one of those young people, when they returned to Iran, were executed. And this is what the
Yeah.
young people who are, out in the streets, fighting for this cause, or, they not realize they are the first who would be executed in a
No.
regime that was
Yeah.
taken over, because they are the most dangerous, because because they give so much to it. And then when they see that their communist cause or whatever, is not the cause that they thought it was, then they need to be done away with. So they're used and
Yeah.
then gotten rid of. So it's very, very frustrating, especially for somebody like me. And for those of us who are a little bit older, who've been through all of this, I try to tell these stories so that they remain as a warning, because our young people, they don't know. They don't know what it's like.
No. And what is truly horrifying is this is a blanket statement about the state of American education, which had turned into Marxist propaganda and was formalized under Jimmy Carter's Department of Education. Turned it over to a pack of leftists who've been chanting lies at our youth for years. Right. So that has worked. Apparently, it's worked incredibly well. Um, and it's horrifying the lack of knowledge of history that younger
Mm-hmm.
people have. But this is particular to Jewish Americans, right? How you cannot know. Apparently, they managed to, if you didn't go to Hebrew school or your parents weren't religious and you didn't go to a conservative or Orthodox, I don't even know what they say in Reform shuls anymore. I've got no idea. How
Yeah.
is it possible? There's a single Jew in New York marching with a sign saying Jews for Mamdani. It really is. He worships the man who caused the 1929 Hebron massacre that Hitler then brought to Berlin and put in charge of telling Arabs to be Nazis. He was Yasser Arafat's uncle.
Yeah.
This is who he worships. And they don't even know that. And America is such a soft place. They don't understand. We took my kids to see it's called I think the Terror House or something. Horrible name because it sounds like it's a fun attraction in Budapest, where the academics document this was the torture house in the middle of town that the secret police brought you if you didn't like communism, or you said something
Right.
wrong, or you wrote an article or whatever. Torture dungeons in the basement in Budapest, this lovely city. The
Mm-hmm.
execution chambers reconstructed. This was all for saying maybe you should be able to sell your produce for the price you'd like. That would get you tortured for weeks on end and murdered by your
Right.
own people. That's communism.
Yes.
That's what
When I,
communism
yeah,
always is.
the
Wow.
house the house where that my husband, his old, the village house that he lived in, which was the biggest house in the village. It was near Lake Bled, beautiful part of the world. And during the Second World War, his house was taken over by the Germans, and it's horrible. The basement was used by the police as to torture people. This was the house. I was like, I was terrified to go down in that basement all the time because I have a horrible imagination. But that's where they
Right.
would torture people. They tortured people in the basement of the house of my husband. And I mean, these things are very close to some of us. I wish more young people traveled and could see the world. Goodness, just send them all to Egypt, to a village in Egypt to live for 1 week, and they'll be begging to get out of there in one day,
Oh my God.
But
My favorite moment in the last few months were those idiot leftists from Europe and America who decided they're going to go to Gaza through Egypt
oh
and
yeah,
go over there, and then they're whining. They took my passport. They were mean to me. Like, they might just kill you, and no one's
they were
going to
being
care. The State
persecuted.
Department isn't going to give a shit. Oh no, they're being
Yeah,
mean to me. Have you seen?
but you know what
If
was
I could hire the contractor that built the wall between Egypt and Gaza, if we put that wall on our southern border, a Mexican
oh,
mouse wouldn't get
absolutely.
through, right? Like,
The funniest thing was when
the hubris and stupidity.
the funniest thing was when one of the people that were trying to get to the border said to the police, who were being very polite to him, said, "But we can do this in America." I mean, that was like the funniest thing. I mean, did he not realize what he was saying? Yes, that's the whole
But what's
point,
even better is
I mean, the whole
what I loved
point.
about that. I saw that. My comment was, you can do that in Seattle. You can do that in California. You can do that in New York. You can't do that in Florida. You're wrong. No, you can't do that in Florida. We might as well be Egypt. So as far as you're concerned, you liberal idiot. No, you can't do it. Try it in Texas. Give it a shot. No, you can't do it everywhere in America. Just the lefty places you hang out in. But
At least
I guess,
in America, you can criticize. You can be a real comic, not like he who must not be named,
yep,
but you can be a real comic and make fun of the government. You can make fun of the
yep,
Bible. You can make fun of any religion
all
except
day
for it,
long.
except for Islam. I mean, nobody ever. I am. If I ever go back to Luxor, I will be killed. There's no question
Yep.
about it. I'm not going back there, obviously. I've received death threats. I've received death threats. And so, I mean, these people, the very fact that they are able to protest proves that they live in, this Mahmoud Khalil, who is now suing the United States government for $20 million. That's because,
exactly.
that's America. That's America, that he can actually sue the government for what? He could not, if he was
I
imprisoned in
can't believe
Egypt,
that. Yeah.
it's
He's
so, the
suing the government. That's crazy.
absurdity of it all. And that he has all these people around him. Oh, poor man, look what he suffered. You have people,
Right.
this spits in the face of the people in Gaza who are brave enough to stand up and protest. And what happens to them? They are tortured,
Yeah.
imprisoned, and killed. I mean,
I mentioned to you that a good friend of mine is part of the security detail for the American
right.
food effort. And I'm not going to share his name, obviously, but I've been getting dispatches from the front lines every day, and he recounts it. Right, the scumbag Fakestidian men trample over women and children. So the Americans are giving the food to the women, and the cowardly scum Gazans. I don't give a shit about Hamas versus Gaza anymore. Not a single Fakestinian has come forward to say where a single hostage is being held. And he's on the front lines. He's like, these are awful, awful, awful human beings, if you can even call
Yeah.
them that. They were there. They watched, presumably Hamas, shoot indiscriminately into a crowd of men and women and
There you go.
children who were
There
lining
you
up
go.
to get food aid. Unlike the UN, who gives the food to Hamas, who then keep it or sell it to the people, this initiative for the past 3 months has been to give the food to the people. And to ensure that,
Exactly.
they hired many, many, many experienced American special operations veterans to ensure that happens. Now, the Hamas sticks are not dumb enough to go up against the Americans. They know that's a fucking one-way ticket to heaven. So, but he was there the day they killed the 14 or so Palestinian volunteers, and the rest of the Palestinian, the people helping, came and hid in the American camp behind the
There you
army.
go.
These are evil, evil people. And the fact that idiots in New York are marching for them, and this Mahmoud prick is I'm sorry, it's hard to remain calm. What drives me insane is nowhere in the Constitution does it say a federal judge sitting in Topeka, Kansas, can issue a blanket injunction to effectively veto the executive power. Rubio and Trump, I don't know why they allowed this to happen. They should have put this prick on a plane and put a parachute on him and flown him over Syria and dropped him out. Why he's walking around free and why he's hugging American senators, it's a travesty. It's just
despicable.
a travesty.
And it just brings more over like him. I know that I've been trying to do some pieces about this as far as also the clan, the clans that are rising up. So, there's the whole issue of, as Hamas weakens, there's all these clans, which I experienced that in Egypt. You have these clans that go back, hundreds upon hundreds of years. So now they are all vying for power. They are all fighting amongst themselves to see who is going to be the next, one in power. That's all they care about. They don't care about the people of Gaza either. They don't, this is all that, it's this tribal warfare that if they're not fighting Israel, they're fighting amongst themselves. But even if one of the big and powerful,
feel it off, let them go for it.
Well, one of the clan members reached out to Israel to try and negotiate, and he was executed. So, it's an impossible situation. And I don't know why the irony of blaming the one democracy, Israel, in the Middle East, and giving a pass to these horrific monsters is beyond my understanding. It's just, incredible.
The one thing I would love for us to cover before we cut off is I tried to explain, because I studied Sharia law in college and I worked in Sharia finance, and so I'm not a
Mhm.
Muslim myself, but I was studying the principles. Um, and I try to explain taqiyya to non-Muslims, and like it is a religious pass to lie to the infidel if it
Yes.
advances the interests of Islam. Now, of course, the interests of Islam that depends on who you are. If you're a normal modern person, that I've dealt with at least, they might as well be secular New Yorkers who happen to go to a mosque instead of a church or a
Mhm.
synagogue, right? But for those who really believe, they're terrifying. And so you've got all of them, Mahmoud, you've got Zohran Mamdani, all these assholes who are or Students for Justice in Palestine, which by the way is illegal in Florida, although it's not in other places,
Mm.
are just lying. They lie, because their entire goal is to get stupid, useful, idiot Westerners to go along with this shit. And by the time it's too late, they've already got their torture prisons set up. And luckily, Americans, at least outside of New York, are all armed, so it's not likely to happen. But that's their goal. And what I just they've done such a good job of lying to children for 40 years through
Yes,
the
that's the
education
thing.
system. They don't even know they're being lied to, and they've done such a good job that when people like us try to point this out, they call us crazy for
Mhm.
reporting objective reality. Now, if you're a Marxist, you've won. The moment you can get people to swear to things that aren't true and accuse people of telling the truth to be lunatics, you've won. That was
Right.
Lenin's playbook. That was Stalin's playbook. Mao's playbook. And it's done nothing but kill tens of millions of people. And New Yorkers are about to elect this asshole. And
Yeah, and
I can't.
so there's no more rational conversation. You cannot have a rational conversation, a logical conversation. There's no logic, no rationality left. As again, it's all emotionalism. They have been programmed to respond emotionally instead of, with sort of deep critical thinking. And as you say, yeah, they've been lied to and lied to and lied to. So, I mean, and plus, most people are like we started with. Most people are ordinary. They just want to live an ordinary, peaceful life. It's the leaders, so they're going to go the path of least resistance most of the time, and that's the problem. When if you elect these evil leaders, that's people are going to, most likely until it gets really, really bad. And then you have some horrible civil war. They're going to go along with it. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
I
So,
just
yeah.
I hope it doesn't get there. But
Are you there still?
I've never been
No,
this
I lost you
pessimistic
again.
about the State of the Union and what could happen because yeah, I know it's been very choppy. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm I thank you for all the writing you do. I thank you for telling the stories. I appreciate you coming on. Like I refuse to go down without a fight, and part of the fight is I broadcast, I write, I talk about it,
Hmm.
and whether people are going to listen or not, I don't know. But we are at an incredibly dangerous point. The Holocaust isn't even 74 years old,
It's
right? I mean,
incredible.
how how are you in support of a 33-year-old charming, smooth talker who's never had a job, who says on a live mic, we're going to tax white
Oh,
neighborhoods
man.
more, whatever he even means by that, right? I mean, because you start to get into the absurdity, like judges under
Oh,
apartheid in South Africa used to look at people's shoulders to determine what percentage black they were. Like the practicalities of this sort of evil are absurd in and of themselves. Who's white, Zoran? Who's going to
yeah.
determine that? Like you're going to go tax, Mrs. Smith in apartment 2B 18% more than Jamal in apartment 4F? Like the mechanics of evil are part of what's so insane, and that's what leads to the torture house in Budapest, or
Yeah.
your husband's basement during the Nazi era. Like the policy is insane enough, But then when you come to the implementation, it's truly evil because someone's got to come up with rules. All right, we're going to tax white people in New York more. We're going to put you in jail for writing a check to a Jewish charity. Well, what's a Jewish charity? Well, now we're going to. That's what you're going to occupy the taxpayer money with?
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an insanity, and but we allowed this to happen all these years. We allowed this sort of Marxist ideology to infiltrate our universities, into the schools. So they've they have such a good foundation upon which now to build this. They wouldn't have been able to do it without all of that. And
Yeah.
I really mostly we'll be gone one day. They don't care about us. They're really working on the young people. And with AI now, with, asking, they don't ask their young people don't ask their parents a question. They ask Grok or they ask Chat GPT. They're asking a machine. They're going to ask their AI agent or whatever is embedded into their computer, all these types of things. So, they're not going to read an actual book. They're going to, so there's all kinds of ways now that they can really push agendas
Completely rig it.
when that they were not able to do before. So
Yeah.
that's why it's like the more we speak out online, maybe our voice can be heard, but certainly, excuse me, the algorithms, push certain voices ahead of others. And so in that way, it is a very frustrating battle too.
It is. I would close with one thing, which I found. You have to look for humor in dark times, right? It's the way you stay sane.
Mhm.
Right? That's what Elie Wiesel always said, right? I can't if I stop laughing, they've won, right? There's this buffoon moron who I've just found out about. I didn't know who he was. Dan Bilzerian, this
Oh yeah.
idiot,
Yes.
this spoiled brat whose criminal daddy left him money. And he's got like
He
90
is, he is,
million followers, apparently because he I didn't know who he was.
I mean, he's
But
like
apparently,
so pumped full of steroids
oh,
too
I
that
know.
like you can hardly.
But like I asked someone who is this idiot? Like apparently he made himself famous by like throwing naked playmates off the roof of his house in Vegas into a pool, and that got him 10 million followers. Okay, funny, right? But when I found both irritating and absurd, was he's this douchebag part of me. He's being interviewed by another idiot, something Piers in London. I didn't know who he was either. But he's going on and he says, I got really angry when I found out that the Jews think Jesus is burning in shit and Mary something, on and on. And I was like, you stupid buffoon. The fundamental issue about Judaism is we don't think about Jesus or Mary. Like, you can hate whoever you want. You can come up with all the Jews, all this, but like, this is what you've latched onto. That you think theologically, the Jews have weird opinions about Jesus and Mary, whereas you stupid, pumped up steroid loser, we don't think about Jesus and Mary at all. It's not a
Well, yeah,
thing.
I mean, they picked up one sentence from, some
Yeah,
intellectual, some debates from, is it from the Talmud or something? I don't know, but
right.
but these are huge, huge books filled
Yeah,
with thousands upon thousands of discourses, a million different things.
yeah,
So they find this one thing, and this is repeated over and over and over. Talking about the algorithms pick it up, they repeat it
yeah.
as the more that they repeat it, the more that the bots repeat it. The more it is seen, the more it is like a type of indoctrination. Modern, it's such an easy indoctrination. You used to have to put somebody in a room and and torture them. Now you just constantly put this in their face
Now
over
I
and
get
over
tortured on
again.
my phone with all this crap.
Yeah, we get tortured. Yeah, exactly. So, it's such absurdity, but they say it over and over and over and
Over and
over
over
again.
again. Well, we can
Yeah.
but hope. We continue to press on and hopefully eventually truth comes out and the light
Truth.
out of the darkness. It's all I have to left going because if I really caved in and believed it was pointless, we wouldn't be having this chat. B, I wouldn't be bothering. B, C, I'd be hiding in the mountains of Switzerland, armed to the teeth. but just,
No. You have to go to Israel. No, I don't think Switzerland is the place to go.
no, they don't have a good history when it comes to
Whatever you do,
protecting Jews.
don't put yourself right in the middle of Europe.
No, they don't have a good track record. But Karen, thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully, when I edit this out, all of our disjointed bad connection will be smoothed away. We'll find out.
Oh, I apologize if my internet isn't. I don't
All
know what
right.
happened today. There are conspiracies. There are forces that are trying to stop
To
us from
stop us and
speaking.
interrupting our conversation. Exactly.
All right,
Probably the Mossad and Jeffrey
there
Epstein's
you go.
ghost.
It is. You're right. It's the Mossad.